What happens when a beloved Hollywood star walks onto a morning show expecting respect and walks out after being blindsided by a host who forgot his place? It only took one comment, one deliberate provocation, 47 seconds into what should have been a friendly interview, for Michael Strahan to destroy any credibility he had left with one of the biggest names in entertainment. Jamie Foxx arrived at the Good Morning America studio that morning with nothing but good intentions. He was there to talk about his latest project, to share some laughs, to connect with fans who had supported him through everything. The cameras were rolling, the lights were bright, and the panel was assembled. Michael Strahan sat front and center, flanked by Robin Roberts and George Stephanopoulos, all smiles and polished professionalism. At least, that's what it looked like on the surface. Jamie walked out to applause, that signature smile lighting up his face, greeting everyone warmly. He shook hands with Michael, gave Robin a hug, nodded respectfully to George. The energy seemed positive. The audience was excited. Everything seemed normal. Jamie Foxx, everybody, Michael announced, his voice booming across the studio. "Good to have you here, man. Good to be here," Jamie responded, settling into his seat. "Always love coming to see you guys." Robin leaned forward, her warmth genuine as always. "We're so happy you could join us this morning. There's so much to talk about." "Absolutely," Jamie said, relaxed and ready. "I'm here for whatever you want to know." That's when Michael jumped in, and the tone shifted immediately. "So, Jamie, let's get right into it," Michael said, and there was something in his voice, something sharp that hadn't been there seconds before. "You've been in the news a lot lately. Some people are saying you're not the same guy you used to be. What do you say to that?" The smile on Jamie's face flickered just slightly. Robin glanced at Michael with a look that said, "Where are you going with this?" George shifted in his seat, clearly uncomfortable. "Not the same guy?" Jamie repeated, his tone still friendly but cautious. "I mean, I'm always evolving, always growing. That's what life is about, right?" Michael didn't let it go. "Sure, but there's a difference between evolving and losing touch. Some critics are saying you've lost that connection with your roots, with the people who made you who you are." The studio went quiet. You could feel the tension building like a storm cloud rolling in. This wasn't a question. This was an accusation dressed up as journalism. Jamie took a breath, maintaining his composure. "Michael, I'm not sure where you're getting that from. I've always stayed true to who I am. I came from nothing, worked my way up, and I've never forgotten where I come from. But have you, though?" Michael pressed, leaning forward with an intensity that felt aggressive. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've gotten pretty comfortable up there in your mansion, pretty far removed from reality." Robin immediately tried to intervene. "Michael, I think what Jamie is trying to say is that success doesn't mean forgetting your past." Michael held up a hand, cutting her off. "Robin, let me finish. This is important." George spoke up, his voice measured. "I think we should move on to talking about Jamie's new project." But Michael wasn't having it. He turned back to Jamie, his expression hardening. "You know what I think? I think you've become exactly what you used to criticize. Remember when you talked about staying humble? Where's that humility now?" Jamie's jaw tightened. The audience could see it. This wasn't just uncomfortable television. This was personal. "Michael," Jamie said, his voice still controlled but with an edge now, "I came here to have a conversation, not to be attacked. If you have a problem with me, maybe we should have discussed that before I sat down in this chair." "Attacked?" Michael scoffed. Actually scoffed on live television. "This is what journalism looks like, Jamie. Maybe you've been in Hollywood so long you forgot what real questions sound like." That was the moment. That was when everyone watching knew this was about to explode. Jamie leaned back in his chair, studying Michael with a look that could freeze water. "Journalism? Is that what you call this? Because from where I'm sitting, this feels like a man with a chip on his shoulder trying to make himself look big by making his guests look small." The audience gasped. Robin put her hand to her mouth. George looked like he wanted to crawl under the desk. Michael's face flushed. "Excuse me? You're on my show. Remember that. Your show?" Jamie's voice rose slightly. "Last time I checked, this was Good Morning America, not the Michael Strahan Power Trip Hour." Robin tried again, her voice urgent. "Guys, let's take a breath here. We're all friends. Are we, though?" Michael shot back, and now he was looking at Jamie with pure contempt. "Because friends don't come on shows and act like they're too good to answer honest questions." Jamie stood up, and you could hear the audience collectively hold its breath. "Honest questions?" Michael, you haven't asked me one honest question since I sat down. You've been baiting me, trying to get me to react, trying to create some drama for your ratings. Well, congratulations, you got your drama. Sit down, Jamie, Michael said, his voice hard. We're not done here. Oh, we're done, Jamie replied, his voice steady and strong. I'm not going to sit here and let you disrespect me for entertainment. I've been in this business too long to play these games. George finally stood up, trying to be the voice of reason. Jamie, please, let's just take a moment. Michael, maybe we approached this wrong. Michael turned on George. Stay out of this, George. I'm handling it. Handling it? Robin's voice was sharp now, her patience clearly worn thin. Michael, you're destroying this interview. Jamie is our guest. A guest who thinks he's above accountability, Michael fired back. Jamie shook his head, a sad smile crossing his face. You know what the real problem is here, Michael? It's not that I've changed. It's that you can't handle the fact that some people succeeded without tearing others down. You're sitting in that chair acting like you're some kind of gatekeeper, like you have the right to judge me. But what have you really done except ride the coattails of this show? The words hung in the air like smoke after a gunshot. Michael stood up now too, his face red. How dare you come on this show and disrespect me like that? Disrespect you? Jamie's voice was incredulous. You've done nothing but disrespect me since I walked out here. You didn't want an interview, Michael. You wanted a takedown. You wanted to knock me down a peg because somewhere deep inside, you're threatened by people who've actually earned their success through talent, not just showing up and reading a teleprompter. Robin stood up, placing herself between them. Stop, both of you, just stop. This is not what we do here. But Michael wasn't listening. You think you're so much better than everyone else, don't you? You think because you've won some awards, done some movies, that you can come in here and talk to me like I'm nothing? I never said you were nothing, Jamie responded, his voice calmer now but filled with disappointment. But you're acting like someone who's forgotten what basic respect looks like. I came here as your guest, Michael. Your guest. And you've treated me like an enemy from the moment I sat down. George moved closer, trying to de-escalate. Let's all just calm down and figure this out like professionals. Michael pointed at Jamie, his hand shaking slightly. Professionals? He's the one who started attacking me. After you spent 5 minutes trying to tear me apart? Jamie countered. You think the audience didn't notice? You think they can't see what you're doing? Robin looked directly at the camera, her professional training kicking in despite the chaos. We're going to take a quick break. No, Michael said sharply. We're not cutting away. This is happening right here, right now. Michael, Robin's voice was firm. We need to cut to commercial. I'm the host, Michael insisted. I decide when we cut. Jamie started removing his microphone. You know what? You don't have to cut anywhere. I'm leaving. You can't just leave in the middle of an interview, Michael said, his voice rising. Watch me, Jamie replied, pulling the microphone pack from his belt. George reached out. Jamie, please, let's talk about this. Jamie looked at George, and his expression softened slightly. George, you're a good man. Robin, you too. You both deserve better than this. But I'm not going to sit here and be disrespected on national television by someone who clearly has his own issues to work out. Michael took a step forward. You walk out that door, and you'll never be invited back. Jamie actually laughed at that, a genuine laugh that somehow made the moment even more intense. You think that's a threat? Michael, I don't need Good Morning America. I don't need this show. What I need is to be treated with basic human decency, and apparently that's too much to ask from you. This is unbelievable, Michael muttered, running his hand over his head. You're really going to play the victim here? I'm not playing anything, Jamie said quietly. I'm simply refusing to be your punching bag. There's a difference. Robin put her hand on Jamie's arm. Jamie, I'm so sorry about this. This isn't how we wanted this to go. Jamie looked at her with genuine warmth. I know, Robin, you've always been nothing but kind to me. This isn't on you. He turned back to Michael one last time. You know what's sad about all this? We could have had a great conversation. I could have talked about my work, my journey, the things I'm passionate about. Instead, you wanted to play games. You wanted to be the tough guy, the hard-hitting journalist who takes down the celebrity. But all you've done is show everyone watching that you're more interested in your ego than in actually connecting with people. Michael's face was stone. Get out. Already on my way, Jamie said, turning toward the exit. George made one last attempt. Jamie, please. Let's go backstage and talk this through. Jamie paused, looking back at the panel. George, I respect you too much to put you in the middle of this, but there's nothing to talk through. Michael made his choice about how this was going to go the moment I sat down. He had an agenda, and he executed it. I'm just not going to participate in my own humiliation. The audience was completely silent now, watching this unprecedented moment unfold in real time. Some people had their phones out, capturing every second. Others just sat frozen, unable to believe what they were witnessing. Michael finally spoke again, his voice cold. This is the most unprofessional thing I've ever seen from a guest. Jamie stopped walking and turned around slowly. Unprofessional? You want to talk about unprofessional? Let's talk about how you ambushed me. Let's talk about how you clearly had this whole attack planned out before I even arrived. Let's talk about how you're using your position as host to bully someone who came here in good faith. Nobody bullied you, Michael shot back. I asked you tough questions. That's my job. Your job is to interview people, not interrogate them, Jamie responded. Your job is to make your guests feel welcome, not attacked. Your job is to facilitate conversation, not confrontation. And you failed at every single part of that job today. Robin looked at the producers off camera, her expression pleading for someone to do something, anything to salvage this situation. But what could they do? This was happening live. There was no taking it back. Michael crossed his arms. If you can't handle tough questions, maybe you shouldn't be doing interviews. I can handle tough questions just fine, Jamie said, his voice strong. What I can't handle is disrespect disguised as journalism. What I can't handle is a host who's more interested in creating conflict than creating content. What I can't handle is being treated like I'm less than human just because I'm in the entertainment industry. George stepped forward again. I think what we're all forgetting here is that we're on the same team. We're all trying to do good work. Michael laughed bitterly. Same team? George, he just called me a teleprompter reader? After you implied I'd lost touch with reality and forgotten my roots, Jamie reminded him. After you suggested I was some out-of-touch celebrity living in a mansion and not caring about real people, you started this. Michael, you threw the first punch. I just didn't let you land it. The tension in the studio was suffocating. Crew members stood frozen, unsure whether to intervene or let it play out. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every word, every expression, every moment of this collision. Robin tried once more, her voice almost desperate. Can we please just reset? Start over? Pretend the last 10 minutes didn't happen? The last 10 minutes did happen, Jamie said gently. And they revealed exactly who Michael Strahan is when he thinks he has power over someone. I'm not interested in pretending. I'm interested in truth. And the truth is, he disrespected me from the moment this interview started. And I'm not going to stand here and take it. Michael's voice dripped with sarcasm. Such a hero, walking away. No, Jamie corrected him. Not a hero, just a man who knows his worth. Just someone who refuses to be diminished by someone else's insecurity. Just a person who understands that. You don't have to accept mistreatment just because someone has a microphone and a camera. He looked directly at Michael, his gaze unwavering. You had a chance today to have a real conversation with me. You could have asked me about my craft, my experiences, the lessons I've learned. Instead, you chose to try to make yourself look important by making me look small. That says everything about you and nothing about me. Michael took a step closer, his voice low and dangerous. You're making a big mistake. The only mistake I made was trusting that you'd be professional, Jamie responded. But I'm correcting that mistake right now. George positioned himself more directly between them. Okay, this needs to stop, right now. Michael, step back. Jamie, let's go backstage and cool off. But Jamie shook his head. There's nothing to cool off from, George. I'm not angry. I'm disappointed. There's a difference. I'm disappointed that someone in Michael's position thinks this is acceptable behavior. I'm disappointed that a show I've respected for years allowed this to happen. But I'm not angry. I'm just done. Robin's eyes were shining now, emotion clear on her face. Jamie, we value you. I value you. Please don't let this moment define your relationship with this show. Jamie's expression softened when he looked at her. Robin, you're a class act. You always have been. But this isn't about you. This is about a host who abused his position and thought he could get away with it because the cameras were rolling and I'd be too polite to call him out. He turned back to Michael one final time. You wanted drama, Michael? You wanted a moment that people would remember? Congratulations, you got it, but not in the way you planned. People are going to remember this, all right. They're going to remember the day Michael Strahan forgot that being a host means treating your guests with respect. They're going to remember the day you let your ego destroy what could have been a great interview. They're going to remember the day Jamie Foxx stood up for himself and refused to be bullied. Michael's jaw clenched. "You're really going to make this about bullying?" "What else would you call it?" Jamie asked simply. "You used your position, your platform, your authority as host to try to intimidate and diminish me. That's textbook bullying, Michael. And the sad part is, you probably don't even see it that way. You probably think you were just being tough, just doing your job. But there's a line between being a tough interviewer and being cruel, and you crossed it today." The audience started murmuring among themselves, the tension finally breaking through their shocked silence. Some people were nodding, clearly agreeing with Jamie. Others looked uncomfortable, unsure what to think. George looked at the producers again, his expression saying, "Please end this." But still, the cameras rolled. Michael's voice was tight. "I have never been cruel to a guest." Then, "What do you call what happened here today?" Jamie challenged. "What do you call starting an interview by attacking someone's character? What do you call refusing to let your co-host redirect to more positive topics? What do you call doubling down when it was clear you'd crossed a line? If that's not cruelty, Michael, then I don't know what is." Robin stepped closer to Michael, her voice quiet but firm. "Michael, maybe Jamie has a point. Maybe we should have handled this differently." Michael looked at her, betrayal in his eyes. "You're taking his side?" "I'm not taking sides," Robin said carefully. "I'm trying to understand what went wrong here so we can fix it." "What went wrong," Jamie interjected, "is that Michael decided to use me as a prop for whatever point he was trying to make. What went wrong is that he forgot that I'm a human being with feelings and dignity. What went wrong is that he thought his title as host gave him the right to be disrespectful," Michael pointed at. "Jamie, again. I asked you legitimate questions." "No," Jamie said firmly. "You made accusations and then framed them as questions. There's a huge difference. A legitimate question would have been, how do you stay connected to your roots despite your success? What you asked was basically, have you become a phony? Do you see the difference?" George nodded slowly. "He's right, Michael. The framing was confrontational from the start." Michael spun toward George. "Not you two. I'm just being honest," George said. "This interview went off the rails because the questions were designed to provoke rather than inform." Michael looked around, seeming to realize for the first time that he was alone in this. His co-hosts weren't backing him up. The audience was murmuring disapprovingly. Even the crew members were exchanging glances. "Unbelievable," Michael muttered. "I try to do real journalism, and this is what happens." "Real journalism involves respect," Jamie said quietly. "Real journalism involves giving your subject a fair chance to respond without attacking their character. Real journalism involves listening, not just waiting for your next chance to strike. What you did today wasn't journalism, Michael. It was a hit piece disguised as an interview." Robin moved toward Jamie. "Please, just give us a chance to make this right." Jamie smiled sadly at her. "Robin, you're trying to fix something that Michael broke, and I appreciate that. But some things can't be fixed with a commercial break and a reset. What happened here today revealed something fundamental. It showed that Michael doesn't have the respect for guests that a host should have, and I can't unsee that." He started walking toward the exit again, and this time, nobody tried to stop him. Michael called after him, his voice sharp. "You walk out now, and everyone will know you couldn't handle a real interview." Jamie stopped, but didn't turn around. "Let them think whatever they want. The people who matter, the people who know me, they'll understand exactly what happened here. They'll see the footage, they'll hear the questions, they'll recognize the disrespect, and they'll know that I didn't run away. I just refused to participate in my own degradation." He took another step, and Michael's voice rang out again. "This is going to ruin you." Now Jamie did turn around, and his expression was almost pitying. "Michael, this isn't going to ruin me. My body of work speaks for itself. My career speaks for itself. My character speaks for itself. But this moment right here, this is going to follow you for a long time. Because people don't forget when someone in a position of power abuses that power. They don't forget when a host forgets that being tough doesn't mean being cruel. They don't forget bullies, Michael. Especially bullies who hide behind professionalism." George walked over to Jamie, speaking softly. "For what it's worth, you handled this with more grace than I would have." Jamie nodded at him. "Thanks, George. You're a good man. Keep being that." He looked at Robin one more time. "Take care of yourself, Robin. You deserve better than this." Then he turned to the audience, spreading his hands. "I'm sorry you all had to witness this. You came here expecting a fun morning show, and instead you got a mess. That's not fair to you, but I hope you understand that sometimes you have to stand up for yourself, even when it's uncomfortable. Especially when it's uncomfortable." Some people in the audience started clapping. It started with just a few, then spread through the crowd. Within seconds, most of the audience was applauding as Jamie walked toward the exit. Michael watched this happen, his face a mask of shock and anger. "You're applauding him? He's walking out on us?" But the applause continued, growing louder. Robin put her hand on Michael's arm. "Michael, just let him go." "He disrespected me," Michael said, his voice almost a whisper. "Now. He disrespected this show." "No," Robin said gently, but firmly. "You disrespected him, and now we all have to live with the consequences of that." Jamie reached the edge of the stage, pausing one final time. He didn't look back at Michael. He looked at the camera instead, speaking directly to everyone watching at home. "To everyone watching, thank you for your support over the years. Thank you for caring about my work and my journey. And remember, you never have to accept disrespect from anyone, no matter who they are or what position they hold. Know your worth, stand up for yourself, and never let anyone make you feel less than you are." Then Jamie Foxx walked off the Good Morning America stage, leaving behind a stunned panel, a shocked audience, and a moment that would be replayed and analyzed for days to come. Michael stood there, looking around at his co-hosts, at the audience, at the cameras still rolling. For the first time since the interview started, he seemed at a loss for words. Robin took a deep breath and faced the camera. "We're going to take a break." George nodded, his expression serious. "Yes, we definitely need a break. The cameras finally cut, but the damage was already done. The moment was captured, the confrontation was recorded, and nothing would ever be quite the same again." In those final seconds before the feed went dark, you could see Michael's face, the realization dawning that maybe, just maybe, he had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. That maybe his attempt to be a hard-hitting journalist had instead revealed something ugly about himself. That maybe the person who had just walked off his stage with dignity and grace had won this confrontation in every way that mattered. The studio lights still blazed bright, but somehow everything felt darker. The energy that had been electric with tension now felt heavy with regret. Robin and George exchanged glances, both knowing they had just witnessed something that would define this show for a long time to come. Michael finally sat back down in his chair, and for the first time all morning, he looked small. Not physically small, but diminished somehow. The bravado was gone. The aggression had faded. What remained was a host who had just learned a very public, very painful lesson about the difference between being tough and being cruel, between asking hard questions and attacking a guest character, between journalism and bullying. The audience slowly filed out during the commercial break, buzzing with conversation. Phones were already lighting up social media with clips and commentary. The moment was spreading like wildfire across the internet, each share and retweet cementing what had happened into the public consciousness. Backstage, crew members whispered among themselves. Producers frantically made phone calls. Publicists began crafting statements. But nothing could change what had occurred in those intense minutes when Jamie Foxx decided he'd had enough, when he chose his dignity over the comfort of complying, when he walked away from a situation that had become untenable. Robin sat quietly, processing everything. George reviewed notes that suddenly seemed irrelevant. And Michael stared at nothing, perhaps replaying the conversation in his mind, perhaps wondering where exactly it had all gone wrong, perhaps beginning to understand that the person who had walked off that stage was not the problem. The person who had driven him to walk off was. The commercial break ended, but the show that resumed was fundamentally different from the one that had started that morning. The energy was subdued, the smiles were forced, and everyone watching knew they had just witnessed something remarkable. A guest standing up for himself against a host who had forgotten the basic rules of respect, dignity, and professional courtesy. Jamie Foxx had left the building, but his presence hung over the rest of the broadcast like a ghost. A constant reminder of what happens when power meets principle, when ego meets integrity, when a bully meets someone who refuses to be bullied. And in that collision, in that spectacular, uncomfortable, raw moment of truth, something important had been revealed about character, about respect, about the line between tough journalism and cruelty. Jamie Foxx had shown everyone watching that walking away isn't weakness, it's strength. That refusing to accept disrespect isn't being difficult, it's being dignified. That knowing your worth means not letting anyone diminish it, no matter how bright the lights or how many cameras are watching. The interview that never finished had said more than any completed interview could have. It had revealed truths about both men involved. One who thought his position gave him the right to attack, and one who knew that no position, no platform, no amount of fame or success gives anyone the right to disrespect another human being. And as the show continued without its intended guest, as Michael Strahan tried to regain his composure and his credibility, as Robin Roberts and George Stephanopoulos attempted to salvage what remained of the broadcast, one thing became crystal clear to everyone watching. Jamie Foxx had not lost anything by walking off that stage. He had gained something far more valuable. He had shown the world exactly who he was, a man of principle, a man of dignity, a man who knew when to stand up and when to walk away. And in that moment, he had won not just the confrontation, but the respect of millions who watched him choose himself over the comfort of staying silent in the face of disrespect.